Hello, everyone. Welcome to Jamaica 411. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm your host, Michelle Stern. So, we're going to be doing a deeper dive into the controversy and it's certainly causing some anxiety among our people. This business about Jamaica accepting deportees from the United States who are not Jamaicans but nationals of other countries, and they are being deported from the United States. They fall into several different categories, and I'll be explaining it to you. So we're going to be listening to the statement that Dr. Chang made. He said to clarify the deal that we are about to enter into. And of course, the opposition asked many questions, some of it not very helpful, most of it repetitive, asking the same question over and over again. Them not paying attention. That's the main thing, not paying attention, and so then keep repeating what other people already ask, right? And that is, of course, part of the problem. But I have done some digging, and I believe I have found information that may certainly ease your heart about this program that the government will be entering into with the United States. Now, I am going to bring you that information. First of all, I'm going to bring you the clip from Dr. Chang. But before I get into the meat of the matter, may I ask everyone, please, to give the video a thumbs up? Go ahead, please. Give the video a thumbs up from now on, because you know when you come to Jamaica 411, a quality things you're hearing. You come for the information. Most of the time, you don't hear it anywhere else. And so I would appreciate it if you give the video a thumbs up. Share the video, please. Subscribe if you have not yet done so. And feel free to leave your comments in the comments section. And before you think my mother never grow me good, let me thank you all very much for doing so. Well, now that we've gotten the preliminaries out of the way, let us now get down to business.
Question is we recommit no statement by ministers. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. Statement by ministers. Minister of National Security.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I rise to provide some clarity on the memorandum of understanding between the Government of Jamaica and the Government of the United States of America concerning the potential transfer of third country nationals to Jamaica, through Jamaica. Also, I want to emphasize that this matter must be considered within the context of Jamaica's international obligations, its long tradition of maintaining strong security relations with the United States and shared security challenges, our national security responsibility, and the realities of an evolving global migration environment. This MOU is not an immigration settlement arrangement. It is not a program to permanently resettle individuals in Jamaica. The persons contemplated under the framework are nationals of countries other than Jamaica who would transit through Jamaica under a controlled process while arrangements are made for the onward movement, including return to their countries of origin or another appropriate destination. Madam Speaker, it is also important to address some of the public commentary shown in this matter. Under the signed MOU for the TCN, third country nationals, Jamaica will host only 25 TCNs at any one time with the International Organization for Migration, IOM, support, and not 10,000 persons inaccurately reported in the media.
Well, let me apologize for butting in at this stage, but I think it is an appropriate spot to make a little clarity. You remember hearing Dr. Chan speaking about a coordination with an international body called IOM. Well, do you also recall that in the MOU, as reported by the Gleaner, it said that the U.S. intends to review available foreign assistance funds to support the initiative and plans to pay a qualified international organization for services it provides to the individuals who are going to be transferred to Jamaica. You recall that? Yes. Well, that IOM is a United Nations organization that is headquartered in Geneva, Switzerland. It says the International Organization for Migration, and that is the name of it, right? It's a leading intergovernmental organization dedicated to promoting humane and orderly migration. It acts as an official United Nations related agency. Now, the agency has certain specific functions. And as stated here, the role of the IOM provides services, advice, and support to governments and migrants worldwide. This includes managing humanitarian aid, refugee resettlement, voluntary return programs, and border management support. So, of course, you can see clearly that their mandate does not include deportation, which is forced migration. Necessary forced migration by a country that needs to get rid of illegal immigrants, but forced nonetheless. And here now is where they are explaining the role that the IOM will be playing in Jamaica in servicing these deportees. It says rather than processing these individuals as refugees, the IOM acts as an operational contractor. And in this case, they will be the contractors for the United States government. It is them who hire them to manage a program in Jamaica. So it is they who will use US funds to manage, secure temporary housing facilities on the island and coordinate onward commercial or charter flight logistics to ensure the deportees leave Jamaica within the agreed upon 30-day window. So we now know who is handling all of the arrangements on the island for the United States. To get these persons in, that would be the Homeland Security. And then when they arrive, it is the IOM that will take over, having already found housing for the people. And then they are the ones who are going to organize the flights from Jamaica to send these individuals home. So the government of Jamaica and the taxpayers have nothing whatsoever to do with this arrangement at this point. Now, let me jump ahead before I forget. But there was a question that was asked by someone on the opposition side. Where will these people be staying? That is not the responsibility of the government of Jamaica under the MOU. That is the responsibility of the US government's contractor, the IOM. And I would expect that as soon as they find appropriate accommodation, they will be alerting the Jamaican government, because we may have to make some arrangements pertaining to security for these people and don't know the island, right? So that I would expect to happen. Now, another question that was asked was whether or not the accommodation would be commercial. I don't understand what that question was, but I think what they were trying to ask if any business would be involved. But I would expect that because the program is not a fixed program, that the IOM will not be buying a real estate property to house them. More than likely, they'll be renting. So there will be some persons here in Jamaica that have accommodations for rent that will be making some money, perhaps some nice US money out of this deal. So there is something in it for our local people in any event.
Under the signing, the MOU establishes a framework for cooperation. It provides that any proposal for a transfer must be considered by the Jamaican on a case-by-case basis and at Jamaica's discretion. The process is designed to be controlled, phased, and subject to agreed operational procedures. The discussion contemplated a limited operational flow subject to safeguards. A key control mechanism is that the process would pause where the number of individuals remaining in Jamaica exceeds the agreed threshold of 10 individuals, allowing for review and management of capacity. There is no need, Madam Speaker, for excessive focus on the final number, as Jamaica will maintain complete situational awareness in respect of each potential transfer, which will be carefully vetted against the established criteria and must comply with all the requirements agreed before Jamaica agrees to the transfer. Importantly, it is Jamaica's assessment that will guide what is considered appropriate and manageable. Madam Speaker, the government has also been deliberate in ensuring that the MOU contains the necessary legal protections. I can assure the public that every line was carefully considered and negotiated by skilled professionals steeped in foreign and security policy, as well as attorney at law well versed in matters of international and constitutional law in our Attorney General's department.
Let me pause here a bit to point out that there is absolutely no law that is in place to govern this program. So when these deportees, remember, are not Jamaican citizens. We are under no obligation to accept them, right? As the minister pointed out. But when them arrive, exactly what rules or what law will they be admitted under? The minister mentioned two acts, one of them being the Aliens Act, and I suspect that this is the main one. But even in the Aliens Act, there is nothing about this program. And what I notice is that the minister does not seem to be in any rush or any seem to have any intention to bring any amendment to the Aliens Act to accommodate this program, or bring any bill to be tabled before the House that would accommodate this program. So what I'm thinking that he probably will do under the Aliens Act is use his power to grant exemption. Remember, these persons coming in, they're going to have to sign up this C5 form. That is the immigration form. What are they going to be entered into Jamaica as? They are deportees, right? There is no framework for what to do with these particular deportees who are not Jamaicans. That's the long and short of it, right? We don't have no law to say what we're going to do with them. What they going to put on the immigration form is on purpose for entering Jamaica. Remember, these are foreign people, They have no attachment whatsoever to Jamaica. So what will be on the form is a reason for entering Jamaica. So it seems to me that the minister is going to have to use this exemption at Section 17 of the Aliens Act. Now, when I talk about the questions that were asked, a question was asked of the minister, when was the MOU signed? But I would have thought that the most obvious question to ask, especially in circumstances where the government not bring no legislation to accommodate this program, is when was it that the US first contacted the government? Because this don't seem like it could be very long. And I think that that is something that Dr. Chang should respond to, whether or not he has any intention to bring a law or to amend the present Aliens Act to accommodate the program. Now, I don't recall hearing him say so, but who knows? Maybe he did and I just missed it. And Dr. Chang, I would suggest that if you don't want the government to face any possible embarrassment, with the opposition taking the matter to court and possibly succeeding in having the subsequent agreement declared null and void and of no legal effect, that you might want to at least amend the Aliens Act, because that would be much faster to, give legal force to this MOU that you'll be entering into, which you can always delete at some future date when the program ends. But I would strongly advise that you bring some legal protection to the program.
Admission of foreign nationals to Jamaica continues to be guided by the Aliens Act and the Immigration Restriction Commonwealth Citizens Act. Under review and should be in the House very soon, but it's still valid and has excellent guardrails for acceptance of foreign nationals in Jamaica. This is why, Madam Speaker, no transfer can take place until the operational procedures are finalized to ensure compliance with Jamaica's legal framework. The MOU specifically recognizes that all action under the framework must be consistent with Jamaica's international obligation, including the Convention relating to the status of refugees.
Now, this statement by the minister is very, very important. On the face of it, you may be wondering, who is he speaking to? He cannot be speaking to Jamaica because we are abiding by the framework and the international obligations that we have under the convention relating to the status of refugees. So this is not a message to us. This was a message to the United States and the IOM, and it is included in the MOU that whatever actions they are going to take under the framework of this agreement that we're going to be having with them must be consistent. They must make sure that they are not violating any of Jamaica's laws, any of Jamaica's international obligation, and certainly not the convention relating to the status of refugees. What is that status? It is a 2009 policy that was formulated to deal with persons who end up in Jamaica. These are non-Jamaican nationals who come into Jamaica and how they should be treated. And it says specifically that if any person entering in Jamaica, however them come, and they said to the immigration officer that, look, you can't send me back home, because if I go back home, they might go persecute me, me might lose my life, just by expressing that fear. Those persons cannot be deported from Jamaica and they cannot be sent back home. The proper process is that the matter must be brought before the courts. The judge will hear the person out. If they agree that there's a real threat, then they qualify for refugee status and they stay permanently in Jamaica, right? If the court disagrees that there is no evidence of any danger, then probably come for economic reasons, then the application will be refused for refugee status, and then we deport them back to wherever it is that they're coming from. So what Dr. Chang was doing was reminding, not the parliament necessarily, but reminding this IOM and the United States government that anything that you do with these persons that will now be in your custody, if any of them were to say that they have a fear of being persecuted, if you send them home, you are to ensure that you alert the authorities and we will now take over, because that person cannot be removed from Jamaica. That is the law. And you can imagine there will be a temptation on the part of this company to ignore the law and send them on their way, because they have a 30-day window to get these people in and out of Jamaica. You get what I mean? Yes.
The MOU specifically recognizes that all actions under the framework must be consistent with Jamaica's international obligations, including the Convention relating to the status of refugees, the 1967 Protocol relating to the status of refugees, and other applicable international obligations. This is further supported by the broader international migration governance framework, including principles advanced by the International Organization of Migration, which promotes migration systems that are orderly, humane, safe, and rights-based. Government has already ensured that the operational safeguards are clear. Importantly, before any transfer occurs, Jamaica and the United States must first agree to the operational procedures governing implementation. Individuals will be considered on a case-by-case basis. Jamaica retains the discretion to accept or reject proposed individuals. All available documentation relating to identity, medical information, and criminal history must be provided. And persons with criminal antecedents will not be accepted under the arrangement. Madam Speaker, let me reiterate that no transfer will commence until the necessary procedures are completed and accepted by both parties, have agreed on the implementation framework. The MOU itself provides the implementation is to be consistent with operating procedures mutually agreed in writing before transfer begins. We must also recognize the diplomatic environment within which the decision has been made. The United States remains one of Jamaica's most important bilateral partners, if not the most important. With a significant diaspora population, this population maintains strong family ties and business interests in Jamaica, the ultimate place of home. As a sovereign nation, Jamaica has a responsibility to maintain constructive diplomatic relationships while ensuring that cooperation is consistent with our laws, our values, and our national interests. Our approach has been neither automatic acceptance nor rejection. It has been careful negotiation over time. Jamaica has a long history of engagement on security, migration, and international cooperation matters. We have considered the experiences of other countries, including those within the Caribbean region, that have entered similar arrangements and have ensured that Jamaica's circumstance safeguards remain central. Madam Speaker, the government has not taken this decision lightly. We have a responsibility to protect Jamaica's security, uphold our international commitments, maintain our diplomatic partnerships, and to ensure that any cooperation undertaken is structured, lawful, and in the best interests of the Jamaican people. That has been the guiding principle throughout the process, and it will continue to guide the implementation of this particular program. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Dr. Chang. So you've heard Dr. Chang's statement in the Parliament, around 6 minutes or so. Was it any clearer for you, this MOU that is being signed between Jamaica and the US? I imagine you probably want to know a little bit more about the program, and I'll fill you in very quickly on that shortly. But for the moment, I think that we should discuss these deportees that will be coming into the island. And why is it that they'll be treated differently from both the Cubans and the Haitians? Because that question was asked again in the parliament by several persons. And they wanted to know why the Cubans are treated different, why it is that these particular deportees are treated differently. Well, for obvious reasons. The Haitians and the Cubans were unplanned. They didn't go to the embassy or the consulate in Cuba or in Haiti and ask for permission to come into Jamaica. So we don't know about these people. We don't know their health, and we don't know their whether them have a criminal background. So all of them would have to be confined until we know who they are and their antecedents. And then know if they are seeking refugee status. They tell the immigration officer that they have a real fear that if you send them home, they're going to be persecuted. Then no, that would stop the government from deporting them until the matter is settled in the court. So to answer the question why it is that the Cubans and the Haitians were treated differently, well, that's the reason. They come by boat, and these persons in a very different category. They are coming under an agreement, a bilateral agreement between the United States and Jamaica, where persons who are being deported from the United States for breaching them immigration law will be transiting through Jamaica. So the United States is going to call Jamaica and say, we have X amount of persons on deportation order from the United States. All the processes have been followed here because I'm have to abide by for them rules too. We have followed all the processes here. Here is information on the persons. The Jamaican government has 36 hours to review. They say, yes, we'll accept. Then put them on a plane with the Homeland Security, escorting them to Jamaica. Homeland Security going to sign up the immigration form, the C5. And I don't know what they're going to put is them reason for being in Jamaica, but I suppose the minister will waive all of that. But anyway, they'll be arriving in Jamaica, handed over to the representative of the International Organization of Migration, the IOM. They take charge of them, transport them to the place that they arrange for them to stay while they are in Jamaica. And the IOM is supposed to make arrangements within 30 days to have them out of Jamaica. That is what that is. Their status in Jamaica would be as if they were visitors. Remember, they have committed no transgression of our laws here. So we can't lock them up. And remember, they were not criminals where they might come from. So there is no danger in having them in Jamaica. That's it. That's the second thing. So we don't have any laws that would permit us to lock them up. And we have no reasons to lock them up. So they'll be walking around Jamaica free as a bird. It is the IOM's responsibility to know which part them there and know if them going anywhere, them going to have an escort, or how them going to ensure them know where they are. Not our responsibility and not our expense. So that is the long and short of it. That is the extent of the program from start to finish. But I can sense that you may not be satisfied with all of this explanation because there is something that is missing from all of this. And what is that? You don't know what the program is really about. And that is what is causing the suspicion. You don't know what it is about, and therefore you are suspicious and very uneasy. So what we're going to do at this point is tell you about the program itself. Now, the last time I was quoting from the Gleaner article of what they saw in the MOU as to the reason why they feel it necessary, that is the United States, to enter into these arrangements. Well, when I tell you what the program is about and the deportations that has been going on in the United States in 2025, you're going to be very surprised. And I would not be surprised if very soon this program is not shut down by whichever one of the authorities in the US has the power to do so, whether it's the Senate or the Congress. And you will soon see why. The first interesting piece of information I want to pass to you is about the program itself, the Third Country National Agreement. And the first one was inspired by the fact that persons were landing in one country with the intention of crossing the border into another country and then applying for asylum. And so, where this was happening, and it was a real problem, was at the Canadian US border. So, they came up with this agreement. It was called the Safe Third Country Asylum Rules. And it was signed and came in operation in 2002 between the US and Canada. And it basically said that if the asylum seeker arrive in Canada first and then cross the border into the United States, apply for asylum, in those circumstances, the person is going to be sent back to Canada. Canada is considered a safe country. So they're going to be sent back to Canada, and the Canadians will process the asylum seeker's request. And if indeed the person intends to go to Canada, but then got a visa to land in the United States and then cross the border into Canada, the same thing would apply. If they apply for asylum status, they will be sent back to the United States, where the US is going to process the status. And that was signed in 2002. And it was intended to deal with those persons who were crossing the border between the United States and Canada. There was no such agreement, though, between the United States and Mexico. So after this particular agreement, there was another variation dealing also with asylum seekers. That particular variation is called Asylum Cooperative Agreement. And that is the agreement that was signed between the United States, Antigua and Barbuda, Eswatini, and Belize, for example. That particular agreement also deals only with persons who are seeking asylum. So what would happen is they seek asylum in the United States, and one of two things would happen. If they manage to get before the court may grant them a hearing, and the Homeland Security at any point at all in the process can block that asylum seeker and then deport them to one of the countries that they have the asylum cooperative agreement with. My understanding of the program is that whenever it is that they arrive in that particular country, it is to that country that they will apply for asylum. What if they don't want to apply for asylum in that country? Then they may run the risk of being detained and deported back to their home country, which is precisely what they were trying to avoid. So they have to apply for asylum status in that country, whether they like it, yes or no. So this is not the deal that we have with the United States. The deal that we have with the United States falls under the broader category of general third country removals. And these are the non-asylum seekers. And they are also the persons who just broke U.S. immigration law, entered through the border or entered on a visa and never returned, and they are being deported. So these are the category of deportees that will be sent to Jamaica under the MOU. The big question is this: why is the United States going about them affairs in this convoluted way? Why not just deport the asylum seekers back to the country where they come from? Well, that now is a problem. The same convention that Jamaica signed to, the United States signed to it as well. And if somebody come into your country and said to you that, look, I am here because I'm running away from the country that I'm in, my life is in danger, and if you send me back, I may well lose my life. You're expressing a real fear that if you were returned home, something bad might happen to you, right? Once somebody turn up in the United States and make that pronouncement, they're not supposed to be deported. Now, the United States don't want these people because many of them come claiming that, if you send them back home, like the Haitians or Cubans or anywhere else, if you send them back home, all sorts of things are going to happen to them. And it's not really true. Them really come into the United States because they're seeking opportunity. And them thought that this is one way to get to live in the United States permanently without going through all the rigmarole that we who have to go through the embassies, go through. So because of that, the United States come up with this asylum cooperative agreement. Since you say, if me send you back to your country, your life might be in danger, the way out for the United States was to send them to a third-party country. Then can't complain then. Because that third-party country is not where them come from. And there now, them can go and seek them asylum. Now, the United States may argue that that's an excellent reason for having implemented this program in the first place. The European Commission, they have something similar as well, little variation from what the US has. But when it comes to the ordinary people who broke the immigration law in the United States and are supposed to be gathered up and deported, I don't understand the reason why they put them under this program instead of sending them directly to the country where they come from. And let me show you what I mean. You're looking at the breakdown of the 267,000 asylum decisions that were made in the United States last year. 267,284 asylum decisions. But look at this. This is saying the 2025 data. The United States government did not operate formal ACA, that is the Asylum Cooperative Agreement designations in 2025. I think many of them may have been assigned towards the end of 2025. Instead, third country removals were handled via broader regional enforcement mechanisms. Independent data tracked by migration advocacy groups indicates that over 19,000 third country nationals were removed under the General Third Country Agreements in 2025, with more than 17,000 of those individuals being sent to Mexico. You heard that? So what we're going to be looking at now, how many persons were actually deported last year directly to the country where they come from? Let's check. It says in fiscal year 2025, U.S. immigration authorities removed or returned 442,637 individuals to their countries of origin. They deported 442,000 people last year using the normal process. Send them back to them yard. This is the cheapest way to get the people home. The United States foot the bill, and it's the cheapest way. Why? Because unlike the third country agreement, the United States pay for the passage of the deportees to the country and pay for them passage out of the country. And while they're in the country, then pay for them stay as well for the 30 days. Now, when them deport them directly to them country, all they have to do is to pay one airplane fare, send them back to them country, and take the plane back. So the process that they're using to send away these persons who are breaching immigration law, the ordinary people not seeking asylum, through a third country is the most expensive way to do it. So you ask yourself, why are they doing it? You know the reason why they're doing it? Trump. He saw the program. The program for asylum seekers to divert them to some other country where they can go seek asylum was an excellent idea. And that lessened the burden of the United States, them detention system and them court system. But this other arrangement that them under now, trying to force out people, trying to force the people out of the United States through a third country for absolutely no good reason. There is nothing to be gained and everything to lose, particularly money, with the United States sending these particular deportees out the country in this particular way. Listen to this. It says Third country national agreements, 300 people. A Senate Foreign Relations Committee investigation confirmed that despite broad political maneuvering, only roughly 300 migrants were successfully deported to nations other than their own. And that is 2025. 300 out of the 442,000. And here now the Senate committee is giving an example. These limited arrangements involve small-scale, high-cost transfers, such as sending 8 individuals to South Sudan and a targeted deal to repatriate 400 individuals to Iran. 8 persons, and they may have chartered a plane to go do that, to fly them from the United States to the Sudan. The Sudan is in Africa, right? Central Africa. So it would have cost the United States one bundle of money to send them from the US to Sudan. And remember, that is not the final destination. The Sudan now must deport them from Sudan to their home country, wherever the hell that is. And that's why them say it was a high-cost transfer. This policy of sending non-asylum seekers to third-party countries may well have existed, before Trump came to office, but he's the one that is pushing it now. He's aggressively pushing it, and that is the one that we're signed on to. And based on the fact that they are investigating it in the United States, the Senate, there's a Senate committee set up, very likely they may recommend that an end to be put to it. So I would say, don't worry your beautiful heads and don't worry your handsome heads about it. Everything will be all right. Let us just sit down and watch the ride. What do you say to that? Agree? Yes. Well, folks, that's it for me today. Let me know in the comments section what you think of all these rigmarole business that the United States is going on with. And of course, the MOU that was signed. If you found the information that I gave you interesting and informative, and you have not yet done so, please remember to give the video a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe as well as share. Until next time, take very good care of yourselves and walk good.